Good evening and welcome to tonight's business session of the Washington County Board of Education. I declare a quorum. We have 6 members with us tonight, and the student member is also with us. Tonight, the Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Addison Eckenrode, grade 3 student at Emma K. Dowd Elementary School, followed by a moment of silence. So if you would please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. So Addison, would you like to introduce anyone tonight that's with you?
My mom, her name's Jessica Norris. And I love my mom so much.
That's nice.
I understand you have a big family. Is that right? How big is big?
Really big. My dad might be here, but he's going to be a little late.
Okay.
Her dad is going to try to be here. He might be a few minutes late.
Back there? He might be coming in right now. No, that's not him.
And I understand you like art.
Yes.
Are you really good at that?
Yes, I like to draw things.
What was that again? What do you like?
I like to draw things like cats and dogs.
Draw things, cats and dogs. Nice. Very good. Good.
You like social studies class?
Yes.
Good.
Because you get to do experiments and blow stuff up.
Good,
Other
good.
board members? If you'd like
Your
to ask
dad just come
questions,
in?
feel
Is that
free.
him in the back?
Yes, that
Oh, well,
is.
Your dad
we got-
made it.
Should we do the pledge again for the dad? Come on up, Dad.
That's bashful.
Addison, you brought someone from your school. Who's with you from your school today?
My principal, Dr. Henson.
Very nice.
She's a very nice
Principal.
principal.
What's your favorite subjects in school?
Well, we know social studies is, and
Science,
art, so.
science, reading, math.
Very good. Very good.
Stay back there, he's a math man. Anyone else?
Do you have dogs and cats that you draw?
Yes.
What are their names?
Brutus, Bo, Molly, Rocky and Piper, and Uno,
And Uno.
and Puff.
And Puff.
They're
Oh, my
they're
goodness.
both the 2 cats.
Well, that's
But-
wonderful.
But Puff just likes to run away from me. I don't know why.
What a debacle.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, Addison, for coming here tonight. Appreciate it. You did a very good job.
You're welcome.
All right. All right, we'll move to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
Move for approval.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, it's unanimous. Student member concurs. Now we'll move to the approval of the minutes.
Stauffer, I move for the approval of the closed session minutes dated Tuesday, November 1st, 2022.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Or second, I mean.
Second.
Excuse me. Okay. Any additions, corrections, concerns? All righty. Move to the vote. Raise your right hand. Yes. 6-0.
Vice President Stauffer, I move for the approval of the business meeting minutes dated Tuesday, November 1st, 2022.
Second.
Second.
Again, any additions, corrections? Move to the vote. 6-0, student member concurs. And we'll move right to the superintendent's report.
Yes, sir. Vice President Stauffer, members of the board, as educators, we know the value of literacy and succeeding in school and in life. Today, digital literacy is nearly as important. At WCPS, we're incorporating computer science and computational thinking with our youngest learners. I'd like to invite Dr. Gary Willow and Dr. Ann Anders, Ben Hurley, and Lynn Wilcox, and also joining them will be some of our elementary students and friends so they can demonstrate how our students are learning about computer science. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Savine. Good evening, Vice President Stauffer, members of the board. It is really an honor and a privilege to be up here this evening. We have a lot to celebrate within our school system, things that are going right. And we've talked in the past about the apprenticeship program and some of our curriculum, but one opportunity that we have tonight is to talk a little bit about computer science, specifically at the elementary school. And I think you're going to see some things that are not well known in the community. For example, that 100% of our elementary students have access to computer science. And I am proud of the team that's up here tonight. And so with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Ann Anders.
Thank you. Good evening, Vice President Stauffer, Dr. Sovine, and members of the board. This evening, our team would like to share with you our WCPS computer science journey in pre-K through 5th grade. Our work with MSDE has given us an opportunity to collaborate and lead others in the state to examine computer science through the lens of teacher leadership, teacher capacity and development, curriculum materials, partnerships, and our community. One of our priorities is to expand access to computer science for all students in WCPS.
We begin with the overarching computational thinking model. Instruction in computational thinking happens with our youngest learners with pattern recognition, which directly aligns to our central curriculum. We see these components of decomposition, abstraction, pattern recognition, and algorithmic design across all content areas. For example, we may observe our primary students constructing patterns in math, or decomposing or breaking apart words in reading. Students may decompose text in order to build their understanding or increase comprehension. When students find main ideas and details in a text or recreate artwork, we find them using abstraction. The components of computational thinking are embedded in our essential curriculum.
Computer science is defined as the study of computers and the phenomena surrounding them. This definition leads to a common understanding as we look at computer science in our district. In Washington County Public Schools, we use the Maryland Computer Science Standards, which are divided into 5 concepts spanning pre-K through 12th grade. These concepts include computing systems, networks and the internet, data analysis, impacts of computing, and algorithms and programming. The subconcepts break down each of these overarching concepts and are found throughout our computer science curriculum. The goal of our elementary program is to build a solid foundational computer science experience, supported by the computational thinking model, to provide all students with a full and well-rounded education for success in their future.
It is important to ask, why are we investing in computer science? How will this benefit our students in Washington County Public Schools? Research has shown various benefits ranging from higher achievement scores, developing problem-solving, reasoning, and spatial skills, to developing executive functioning and emotional intelligence. Computer science opens the door for all learning styles and is highly engaging to students. These thinking skills help students address challenges and become productive learners, proactive learners, and citizens. The benefits are vast. The computer science opportunities in elementary school prepare our youngest learners for their jobs in the future. We would like to thank you, the Board of Education, for your ongoing support to provide funding to make this happen for our students.
At this time, we would like to give context to the work in WCPS. The foundation of computer science in elementary schools began in 2018 within the Library Media Program. Individual lessons infused robotics, problem solving, computational thinking, and computer science. In the beginning, we relied heavily on online content with Code.org. Beyond library media, our pre-K and kindergarten classes include robots and unplugged activities to support literacy and math. Advanced programs such as GATE and magnet classes are using Sphero bolts within their curriculum. Most recently, our classroom teachers have found creative ways that bolts can enhance their lessons and provide computer science within the essential curriculum. Today, we infuse computer science throughout the year within the library media curriculum to build a continuum of skills and grow an understanding of tools. We introduce the basis of computational thinking and computer science using Maryland Computer Science standards. The continuum of skills begins with color sensors using the Sphero Indy robots in pre-K. When upper elementary students begin using the Sphero bolts, they use block-based coding and a variety of sensors. In middle school, they continue with Sphero rovers, and students can block and text-based code with all of the various sensors from their elementary school experiences. They can also plug in peripheral boards to further extend the complexity of coding and programming. The goal has been to build computer science skills with consistency in the tools like Sphero and VEX Robotics.
According to the 2022 State of Computer Science Report, Maryland is ranked as one of the leading states in K-8 computer science offerings. 43% of kindergarten through 8th grade students in the state of Maryland receive computer science instruction. With your continued support, we are very proud to report that WCPS is leading our state in computer science instruction at the elementary school level. Due to the work with our library media specialists, all students across the district have access to computer science instruction. This work has expanded with the pre-K and kindergarten program, advanced programs, and after-school programs as well. Classroom teachers also have opportunities to develop lessons that infuse computer science skills, while supporting the essential curriculum to even widen opportunities across our district. We have a lot to celebrate in Washington County Public Schools.
At this time, we have some special guests who would like to demonstrate our robots and their computer science skills. I would like to introduce Johan Rickafor, grade 5, Madeline Matterman, grade 4, and Carter Mullendor, grade 4. These students will be demonstrating how they incorporate function block into a line of code.
We are each going to be sharing with you a sample lesson that we have completed, programming Sphero to play a game of Simon Says. After learning about functions, we were given the Sphero and created a program that required the use of a function block. We discovered that functions are useful to create programs because a function is similar to a shortcut. The Sphero bolts have a built-in matrix that can be coded to match the direction given during the Simon Says game.
In Simon Says, there are lots of different actions and directions that the leader must give. The function block is useful in coding Simon Says because it saves time, especially when the code must follow a specific sequence or order of steps. A function allows a computer programmer to make fewer mistakes or bugs in a coding program. In my program, I created a code to to have my Simon say step forward, clap your hands, say hi, and spin in a circle.
When I am coding and using Sphero bolts, I like that it offers a variety of coding blocks to use for many different purposes. With Sphero you can start coding from even about 5 years old with the drawing code. Then you can move on to block coding, which is a little more advanced. That would be for 3rd to 5th grade. Finally, for the most advanced, you can do text coding, but with my program, I use block coding. In my program, I use many functions, controls, and animations to create it. With these, I can make my Simon Says program very close to the real game.
To conclude our demonstration, I would like to share why Sphero bolts and coding are great tools. You have a lot of freedom to make the code what you would like. The codes can be extremely simple or advanced. We can discover how a program can be changed or programmed to run a loop for a set number of times. The Spheros can go forward, back, or change angles, which allow the Sphero to be extremely precise in where and when the Sphero goes a certain direction. Thank you for your time and letting us present what we have learned.
Students across the county will have the opportunity to take part in Computer Science and Education Week from December 5th to December 11th by coding robots and solving problems with the engineer design process. This process engages students as thinkers that continually revise, revisit, and investigate challenges. We have found that the hands-on approach and student engagement with robotics and coding is exciting for the teachers and learners. We look forward to showcasing our work during Computer Science and Education Week in December and continuing to expand computer science opportunities for our elementary school students. We thank you for your support. At this time, we're available for any questions.
I don't have a question, and I'll just say that I had the opportunity to meet these students out in the hallway earlier, and I know they were reading here, but they were able to answer every question. They clearly knew exactly what they were doing, and it was very impressive. As they were talking to me, I had no clue what they were saying because it's all right over my head. So, good job, guys. You guys are doing a great job, and keep it up. Hopefully, you want to move forward with this for the long term. So,
a good day is when you learn something, and you all taught me something today. Thank you.
I was telling you this in the hallway, maybe 5 years ago. I was visiting some schools, and the pre-K kids were using bots, and I thought that was so impressive. And now I see how the program has grown, and it's just wonderful what you're doing. Thank you so much for sharing this with us.
Thank you.
In addition to how knowledgeable all three of you are at coding and computer science principles, you all are also very well spoken. I understood every word, or not every word you said, but you spoke very clearly. And yeah, you all are great public speakers as well as great coders.
And I will say I'm a little biased because my wife is a media specialist in Frederick. And one of the reasons she loves this program is because kids are so excited about it. And would you find that similar in your experience here?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the more popular programs.
Yes.
Very good.
Mike? Future computer science engineers sitting there. Thank you very much. I think we have a picture.
We do.
Are we doing a picture?
Yeah.
We want to get a picture of this. Students? That was.
Let's go down front.
Okay, good smells here on 3. 1, 2, 3. And another one. 1, 2, 3. Last one for good measure. 1, 2, 3. Yes, I'll step out of the way and let you go.
Thank you.
And I was so impressed that she had that control.
Shared with you before that WCPS has the #1 apprenticeship program in the state of Maryland. Our team has taken an incredible opportunity to welcome high school student apprentices into our elementary schools to grow our future educators. Dr. Willow is going to remain here, and you can see we've joined him at the table is Mrs. Carly Pumphrey, our supervisor of ELA and social studies, as well as Mr. James Alshire, our supervisor of career and technical education. And I believe they have a student apprentice that they will introduce that will share more about the WCPS Reading Tutor Apprentices program.
Well, good evening again. We're very excited to be here this evening to talk a little bit about the apprenticeship program. As you recall, each month we have spotlighted a different business. Tonight, we are spotlighting you, the Washington County Board of Education, and in particular, we are looking at our tutoring program. And so a little background for the group. We fund the tutoring program through the Maryland Leads Grant. This was an opportunity. There were 7 areas that a school could apply for, a system could apply for. We chose a Grow Your Own, staff retention and support, and a reading tutor program. And what I would say with our Grow Your Own, you're very familiar with the Maryland Accelerates program that we have, but also then again the tutoring program. And I believe we might have an Accelerates member in the audience. Levon Campbell, do you want to stand up? She's one of our Accelerates Frostburg teachers. So I want to thank you, and you're going to get to meet her daughter, who is in our Reading Tutor Apprentice program. So a little background, we have funding for 50 tutor apprentices. Currently, we have hired 32. We will continue the program throughout this year. We hope to add potentially, and then we will again advertise for next year. So this program will go for the remainder of this year and at least until the 23-24 school year.
So all students applied through advertising, recruiting through the Career Technical Education Office, and also with the help of Ms. Pumphrey. We had an incredible time interviewing, working with the principals, talking with the students. All students needed to submit an application, a resume, and a cover letter, and all students did go through a regular interview process.
As you can see, the following elementary schools have apprentices. And again, this was sort of chosen or selected based on the proximity to our high school students and what schools they were able to serve. We are very proud of the fact that we were able to reach many of our elementary schools, and we think that in the near future we'll be able to hit all of our elementary schools.
We provided training and support for these 32 apprentices. They came right here into this room, August 25th and 26th, which were the days before school began, still part of their summer. And I had full days with them that I trained them on specific intervention programs. We trained them on 4 specific research-supported interventions: Stepping Stones, Sound Partners, Targeted Reading Instruction, and Lexia Core 5. They practiced those interventions with one another. We worked together with one another to give each other feedback. Their feedback at the end of the session was that was their favorite time, was to actually try out the interventions with one another. They were learning how to say letter sounds correctly, how to help students identify letters and then say the sounds as well. We also trained them in very specific assessments. They left trained to give the letter sound identification assessment. we call it the IDI, the Informal Decoding Inventory, which basically assesses students' decoding ability and how well they can decode. And we also train them in the spelling inventory, which is how well they can encode or spell and write. We also gave them expectations for progress monitoring. These apprentices keep daily notes of everything they do with every student they work with every single day. They also produce biweekly progress notes that they share with the teachers because they are making a difference in the lives of these students. They're helping them become better readers, and those notes are actually shared as a way so that they can determine the best way to support them the next day, the next week, and to even exit them from this so that they can go back into the classroom and be a successful and confident reader and writer. The mentor teachers, also each one of our apprentices is assigned a mentor teacher, which are our WCPS teachers in our schools, and they meet with our apprentices on a regular basis. I met with a different reading tutor apprentice last week, and she said to me, "My mentor helps me be more specific with my daily notes so we can make better decisions about what to do next to help our students." And these are the interactions that they have every day with their mentors. We also, the Office of the Apprenticeship meets with them every single month. Wendy Moore and Mr. Alshire meet with them. They do check-ins. They ask how they're doing. They report back to me if there's a need and how we can better support the students. So Dr. Willow wanted us to share an example. This is an example of a reading tutor apprentice here in our county. And you'll notice that this particular reading tutor apprentice goes to high school in the morning, which is where they get their credits in order to be able to graduate. But also, they leave around lunchtime. They have a little transition to eat lunch and go right to the elementary school. Some of our students walk from their high school over to the elementary school. Others have to take transportation, depending on where the school is in their high school. And this student works every 20 minutes with either an individual student, one-on-one, on a specific intervention, or in some cases, you'll notice at the end of the day, in small groups with second grade students doing targeted instruction. So this particular reading tutor works with students in kindergarten through second grade. Some of our reading tutor apprentices work K through 5, depending on the need of the school and what the student is able to do in their schedule.
So we're actually going to provide you an opportunity tonight to meet two students. One is we're going to show a video, and then we're going to then introduce Ms. Fantasia Campbell, and she is going to talk to you a little bit about what her day-to-day life looks like in high school and elementary school. And the student that you're going to see on the video is Ms. Jade Calamer, and she is at Cascade Elementary.
I just love showing up here every single day. Like, I wake up and I just love being here. The environment is just so positive, and I just love that I'm being able to be a part of it. I'm a reading tutor at Cascade. I help kids from grades 1 through 5 with their reading and writing skills. I work with them with different objectives they have.
Having Jade here has been a game changer in our building. It has enabled us to meet the needs of kids that we may not have been able to meet the needs because we are a small building and we don't have a lot of extra support.
She's making a huge impact not only on her own life, but on these students as well. She spends about an hour in my classroom, and it varies from helping with whole group times, and then sometimes during small groups, she'll pull and do phonics small groups with some of my students that are a little bit lower and need that extra help getting up to grade level.
We have cities and
Well, the benefits are immediate because the kids are getting extra support with targeted instruction in small group or one-on-one. They had training for, I think, 2 days right before the teachers came back to school. And then they worked with content specialists in the ELA on what interventions were available and how to assess students and how to progress monitor.
Miss C is a really good person because she helps people a lot. She helps me to spell and read. What I like about working with Miss C is that I can concentrate.
Good job. My plans after graduating high school, I definitely want to explore more at HCC, and maybe while attending at HCC, I could come here and be a parapro. It's just good to be a part of knowing that I helped some kid go further with their life.
What is exciting to me is that it's a win-win for everybody in the building. It's a win for the staff, it's a win for the kids, and it's a win for Jade.
She's so helpful in not just my classroom, but anywhere that she's needed. So this program has done amazing things all around.
So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to another one of our superstar reading apprentice tutors, Miss Fantasia Campbell.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Fantasia Campbell. I'm an early graduate at Williamsport High School. I'm also one of the reading tutor apprentices at Hickory Elementary School. I applied to be an apprentice because I've always wanted to be a teacher, and I absolutely adore kids. I'm so grateful for the opportunity I was given to become an apprentice. Each and every day I work with my students, I learn something new. Every day I pull up 4th and 5th graders to work with me one-on-one. I always follow up with my students and ask them how their weekend was or how their day is going. And when I walk them back to class, I always make sure to ask them if they learned something new. Every day my students have a different answer for me, which shows me that the work I'm doing is helping them become better readers. Even though I'm just doing Lexia with them, each of my students and I connect on a different level. And when I say this, I mean each and every student has a different personality, which shows me how I can help them. And my favorite part about being an apprentice is that I don't just get to help the children I pull, but also their peers in the classroom as well. And the smiles on their faces when I walk in the room brightens me, as I know they appreciate and anticipate my presence. This experience reaffirms my commitment to becoming a teacher to positively impact the lives of my future students. Thank you.
I think at this time we're available if there are any questions.
Any questions? Linda?
I'm sorry, you probably said this. How many student tutors do you have in the
I think
program?
32 right now.
Great. Are they all high school students?
Yes, they're all high school juniors and seniors.
And we do have some that are juniors this year who have indicated that they 100% definitely want to do this again next year. We were out for early recruiting already to get started for spring recruiting, and we already have students who have applied that are hoping that the opportunity is there. We've told them it, but we have student applications already for next year for students that are interested in becoming reading tutor apprentices.
Do you have targets for, so you have 32 students in the program this year, and I guess this could go for any one of our apprenticeship programs. Do you have targets that you'd like to meet each year? Because, you know, obviously you want to continue to grow. We're still pretty much in the infancy in this program. Do you have targets, and how do you plan on doing that?
Yeah, next year's target would be 50 students. So that would be the goal. That is what we have funding for in the grant. Our students do get paid $14 an hour as part of the apprenticeship program. So our grant funds cover that.
Don't be afraid to ask for more.
My question is for Ms. Campbell. What advice would you give to someone who's a junior thinking about doing it next year?
I would tell them to most definitely do it. It's a great experience. You learn a lot, and not just by doing the program, but from the kids as well.
I will say that early on, I think during the summer, Daryl and I happened to be here the day that you had your classes here, and it was very impressive how many students were engaged in that. I was thinking I was going to come out here, I was like 12, and I was like, the room's packed. And I know about 8 years ago when I came on this board, one of the things that I talked about is growing our own. And this is finally coming to fruition, and I just can't say how important this is to get our young folks engaged in our own schools and with teachers and then with students, and how hopefully that will carry over into their college years and then come back to be a part of Washington County. I mean, that is just so important, and I just applaud all the staff that has been behind this. I applaud a young lady like you that's just got so much energy and love for children to continue that, because there's always going to be a need for you and your fellow your students. So please recruit them and tell them how important it is, and how, as board members, we really need you to be engaged early on and into a career that will last 40-some years, in some cases. And I'm not making fun of you. Mr. Stauffer always says you had to point that out. He was a great teacher, but we need more people that will focus on a career, and hopefully this is a stepping stone for you, and we applaud you for that. So congratulations.
Fantasia, I'll just say thank you. Echo the comments of many board members. We appreciate your passion, your willingness for giving of your talents to serve our students through a reading tutor. Also, we're excited about your interest in continuing to serve as a teacher. I know Human Resources is not here tonight, but Dr. Willow, I believe we need to work on that open contract for Fantasia. But once again, thank you.
I just want to say that when I went to high school, we didn't have apprenticeship. The only thing we had to prepare people to be teachers, we had a group called the Future Teachers of America, the FTA, and I can remember joining that. I've wanted to be a social studies teacher since the 9th grade of high school, and that's what I became, and I remained one for 42 years, and it was a great career and so forth. And you're to be commended along with the others in this program for what you're doing, and hopefully you'll have a career in Washington County. Let's hope so. Thank you. Are we taking a picture? Picture with her.
Stand, I appreciate that. All right, here on 3, ready, 1, 2, 3. And make an adjustment. All right, here on 3, 1, 2, 3, and last one, 1, 2, 3. One more.
I wanted in that picture.
I did want to just recognize Dr. Talimko, who's here this evening as well, supporting Fantasia. So we want to thank him for being here and for supporting the program.
You know, about the kids from Williamsport with the computers, in the last almost 60 years, it's amazing how things have changed so much. When I went to high school, we still did things with a thing called the slide rule. I don't know if any of you are old enough to remember the slide rule. I will say I was not very proficient with it on some tasks. And Texas Instruments had not yet invented the small handheld calculators. They were just in the development stage and so forth. And so 60 years later, we've moved on to computers, and we got students learning computing and so forth. Some good positive things. Move on now to public comment. No one has signed up to speak. I'll read this in case somebody does want to speak. Each person wishing to address the Board of Education is encouraged but not required to sign up prior to the meeting and may address any topic concerning Washington County Public Schools except personnel or student matters which clearly identify an individual or individuals. Each speaker may speak for up to 5 minutes. Mr. Bixford will be our timekeeper, and he will explain.
About 30 seconds left to hold up the yellow, and then red needs to stop.
At this time, do we have anyone wishing to come and speak? If so, please come up and identify yourself. Okay, seeing none, move on to old business. Mrs. Rahm, our attorney.
Sorry, I assumed there would be public comment. Thank you, members of the board, Vice President Stauffer, Superintendent Savine. The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy BCAD at its public business meeting on October 18, 2022. Immediately following the board's approval, the policy committee placed a public notice on the school system's website and board docs seeking comments from the public on the proposed changes. The committee reviewed policy BCAD and its comment it received on the proposed changes at its public work session on November 10, 2022. The committee did not recommend any additional changes to the policy. The committee is now recommending the Board of Education approve the second reading of the proposed changes to policy BCAD.
Is there a motion?
Vice President Stauffer, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy BCAD entitled Student Member of the Board of Education.
Is there a second?
Second.
Questions for Ms. Rahm?
Wondering what prompted some of these changes. So changes to parts E and F. I'm not complaining about them at all. I'm just kind of wondering where those came from, and those are big changes.
Certainly, prior to my time on the board, there with the Board of Education and with Policy Committee, there was discussion about honoring student service learning hours or a scholarship, and although there had been some talk and in practice, there hadn't been codified, so this puts it into an action, basically. And to the other point, it's encouraged that student board members receive training that they need that's necessary, and usually other board members give up a portion of their allocation to allow for that. And in lieu of that, of asking other board members, it just gives the opportunity and allocation to cover attending relevant, related, and approved trainings for student members of the board.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Move to the vote. All in favor of policy BCAD on the second reading? Okay. Thank you.
The second reading and proposed changes to policy JC entitled Permission to Attend School Out of Home School Attendance Area. The Board of Education approved the first reading of proposed changes to policy JC at its public business meeting on October 18, 2022. Immediately following the board's approval, the policy committee placed a public notice on the school system's website and board docs seeking comments on the proposed changes. The committee reviewed policy JC and the comment it received at its public work session on November 10, 2022. The committee did not recommend any additional changes to the policy. The committee is now recommending that the Board of Education approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy JC.
Is there a motion?
Vice President Stauffer, I move to approve the second reading of proposed changes to policy JC entitled Permission to Attend School Out of Home School Attendance Area.
Second. Questions, comments?
Yeah, I know we spoke about it briefly, Ms. Ram. I just really struggle with the fact that we're taking it out of the policy that the person that gives the permission is not allowed to take away the permission. I really struggle with that, and you know, I understand what you're trying to do, and you know that should be something that should be operational, I guess. I don't know, I just feel like if that's the case, then that whole section C shouldn't be in the policy anyway. So I really struggle with that. I don't know that I could vote for this as it's written, because, like I said, the principal is the one giving the permission. They're the ones that we see fit to run the school. I feel like we should give them the ability to revoke that permission as well.
Mr. Evans, I completely respect and appreciate that, and to be consistent with our other policies, I explained previously that you referenced, and also again for the public's knowledge, to be consistent with our other regulations, it's my advice and proposal that once this is approved and goes before Dr. Savine, the regulation would encompass that. C, rescission of a special permission should be in policy so that there's a mechanism that there's the ability to rescind it. If we struck all of C and only put it in regulation, then the policy wouldn't allow us to rescind. And so the policy committee, and legally I agree, there needs to be a mechanism to rescind that. And so the policy mentions rescission, and the regulation will explain how that rescission is carried out, including those factors. And there may be additional factors in addition to what is listed here, but it is my recommendation that it'll go forward to the superintendent that those items that were struck here move to the regulation.
Okay. Anyone else? We'll move to the vote. All in favor, raise your right hand. Okay, 6-0, student member concurs. Thank you. Mr. Bechtel.
Good evening, Vice President Stauffer, Dr. Sovine, members of the board. The first matter I have in front of you this evening is a recommendation from the Purchasing Review Committee to rescind the previous award of RFP 2023-05, and staff is available if you have any questions on that.
Is there a motion?
Vice President Stauffer, I move to rescind prior award of system-wide copy print hardware, service, and software to Marco Technologies LLC at a 5-year approximate cost of $1,473,060.
Second, I know. Usually you speak right up, so I won't say anything. Any questions, comments of Mr. Bechtel?
So I guess, should we just say that we originally granted this was last month, middle last month, and apparently the company that we awarded this to did not have the proper authority, I guess, to go in and say, is that the right way to say it?
Correct, yeah, they weren't authorized, so they're able
Licensed,
to
I guess,
sell
yeah.
Sharp, but just not in Washington County.
Okay.
What happened was the company we started dealing with a couple years ago was acquired by Marco. That company did have Sharp in Washington County, but it did not convey with the sale. So there was a mistake on their end that they offered it to us, and we found out then after award that it wasn't a viable option. So we had to request that that be rescinded.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else? Let's move to the vote. All in favor of the motion? Under new business, the consent agenda. Bechtel up again.
So tonight, I have 9 items for your review. These have been reviewed by our Purchasing Review Committee and are being recommended for approval. And again, staff is available if you have any additional questions. Sorry.
Vice President Stauffer, I move to approve awards and renewals for professional auditing services renewal to Zelenkowski Axelrod LLC at a cost of $48,250. Security equipment and service renewal to Atlantic Security System at the unit prices listed. Theatrical rigging, lighting, and sound inspection, maintenance, and repair service at the unit prices listed. Landscaping materials renewal to the Mulchman LLC at the unit prices listed. unit price contract for building control systems renewal to Control Systems, Inc. at the unit prices listed. HVAC replacement at Marshall Street School to Callis Contractors LLC at a cost of $3,885,000. HVAC replacement at Williamsport High School to Warner Construction at a cost of $10,700,000. Mobile device management for Apple products renewal to CDWG at a cost of $175,672.15. And system-wide copy print hardware, service, software to Doing Better Business, Inc. at a 5-year approximate cost of $1,997,165.
Is there a second?
Second.
See, I knew you'd do it. Questions for Mr. Bakewell? Comments? I just have one thing. The HVAC system, I understand, at Williamsport High School, that we're replacing for a cost of $10,700,000, is the original HVAC system from 1970.
That's my understanding, yes.
So how many times, I wonder, has it been patched up through the years and nickel and dimed? Maybe Mr. Rollins can answer that. Many times?
Yes.
Many times.
Seems like a big amount, but when you figure it lasted 52 years, it's perhaps time for a new one, more efficient and so forth.
Does this mean the gym's getting air conditioned?
Correct, yeah.
Because I had to do graduation there, and that wasn't. That's great.
Yeah, for the CDWG, the mobile device management for Apple, we're kind of slowly transitioning away from Apple, going to the Chromebooks for the iPads at least. Is this, I don't need an exact number, but is this dollar amount starting to get a little lower because we have less to service?
It is, yeah. That number is directly tied to, a portion of that number is directly tied to the number of devices. So it's not only the iPads, the MacBooks, Apple TVs that also run, but yeah, as those numbers shrink, this number should shrink as well.
Anyone else? Let's move to the vote. All in favor of the motion? 6-0. All right, next item. Ms. Fromm is back up. This is first reading of proposed changes to policy ECBA.
Good evening again. The Policy Committee reviewed proposed changes to policy ECBA at its public work sessions on October 11th and November 10th, 2022. New state law requires that each school system in Maryland adopt or update an energy policy. The committee, at the recommendation of staff, updated the Board of Education's existing energy conservation policy to reflect the new state law requirements. The committee is recommending the Board of Education approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy ECBA.
Oh, I gotta make a motion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Vice President Stauffer, I move to approve the first reading of proposed changes to policy ECBA entitled Maintenance and Operations Energy Conservation.
Now, is there a second?
Second.
All righty. Any questions, comments?
Weren't the changes pretty much word for word matching the state law?
Correct. We had an energy policy that we created in 1979. In 2010, there were very few updates. And then the new law was introduced that mandated certain provisions of the policy. So the blue language we added, other than some few wordsmithing, so it sounds more like real words and less law, it's straight from the new law.
Got it. And the biggest change is we're going to have to do another report to the state, right?
Correct.
This time tracking our energy use.
Correct. And setting targets and monitoring our energy usage. And so if there are technical questions, I brought a friend up.
How do we monitor that? How do we measure the goals set forth by the state? It seems like they're pretty much forcing us to create policy that will impact our budget, because the clean energy that they're asking us to use is not very reliable and a lot of times costs more too.
Mr. Brew?
So I think two parts of the question. One, from a monitoring perspective, from meters of buildings, of course, we can monitor usage. However, we have some scenarios where we have campus situations where multiple buildings are running behind the meter. So, and the buildings are not sub-metered. So really to drill down to certain pieces of equipment or certain sections of building, or even separating buildings in particular. One example coming to my mind, probably two examples, Clear Spring and Boonesboro, I believe, the metering is not separated by school. So one large campus runs on a meter. So to really sort through that is going to be difficult and potentially costly if we want to go in and add sub-metering systems. To the point of monitoring the value of and percentage of renewable energy sources we use, generally speaking, the utility companies can provide that to us. And so when we have an opportunity to renew our power purchasing agreement, we can choose to purchase renewable electric. It is more costly, but that is an option we can choose. Staff is also, entertaining at this point and looking at options of investing in solar in other areas beyond our power purchasing agreement as well. That would be an opportunity for us to reduce our overall consumption, which would potentially save cost.
That was going to be the question I asked, because I know we've kind of had discussions about that in the past where, can we lease our roofs out to solar companies? I know it's not necessarily easy to get that done, but is that something that would fall under this purview where we could go and say, hey, we'll put solar panels up in this big yard that we're not using, and maybe we're not technically using that, but we're selling it back to the grid, which would that make it, fall under the law? Is that something that would help lower our cost or something like that?
It would. Logistically, I would stay off roofs. So when you do go to do a roof replacement, you don't have to take the grid off, and that would be our expense. So that would add more expense to the program.
Could write anything into a lease.
So and again, making sure that the roof can handle the load of the solar array that's on there. Ground leases would probably be the best option, especially in places where we may have some available land at this time. The challenge is you're likely tying up that land to that array for a minimum of 25 years. The greater concern, and where I think previous staffs and or boards have struggled with this decision, is because it is a 25-year power purchase agreement, you're going to have a dictated inflationary measure within that agreement of, here's your energy cost today, here's where we'll be in future years, and the challenge will be, can you beat inflation with this power purchase agreement? That's the biggest challenge, and that's the biggest guesswork. What's the cost of electric going to be 25 years from now? And I think that's where oftentimes individuals get cold feet, and that's where a challenge we'll have to look forward to. But in doing that, we can either sell that power back to the grid or use it to diffuse the amount of electricity that we actually purchase.
And from a legal standpoint, it's the using it to diffuse the amount we purchase that's in compliance. If we were to basically just sell it back, that's not would be, I'm certain there's a way to report it, but that's not what they're aiming at, and that's not what the fiscal note for the bill was referencing. I'm certain there's ways that we can incorporate that, but that would have to be in consideration for staff to look at, is how can we be in compliance and still use those resources should we choose to.
So assuming this goes through and next meeting we approve it, that seems, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it pretty much requires us to make immediate change. What would our next steps be?
No, it doesn't require us to make immediate change. We'd promulgate a regulation, and then we would set energy targets. So knowing our staff would look at knowing our energy use and our costs, what could we do in terms of, using more natural light, turning lights off. Obviously, this is not my area of expertise, but we would set targets like that. The state at this point are not giving us the targets. We set our own and then report how we do against our own targets.
Seems arbitrary.
Yeah, Daryl, in policy, I think we discussed this. We are kind of reading the tea leaves to say this is setting us up for eventually requiring us to
I would say
purchase
so, yes.
renewal and all that. Okay.
Yeah, if you look at the fiscal note for the bill when it was introduced, it if you read between the lines, that's the direction it's moving in. But given where we are with our buildings and our equipment, we would make certain we find manageable targets at this point. But in the future, Mr. Bickford, I believe, my opinion is correct. We're reading the tea leaves on this one.
Anyone else? Move to the vote. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Vote 6-0. Student member concurs. Thank you. Dr. Wilcox.
Good evening, Vice President Stauffer, Dr. Sovine, and board members. I am requesting approval of a gift of $6,890.15 to the Marshall Street Job Development Program from the Marshall Street Job Development Program Social Committee. These material funds will be used to purchase sensory materials, assistive instructional materials, and playground equipment.
Okay, is there a motion?
Vice President Stauffer, I move to approve a gift of $6,890.15 to the Marshall Street Job Development Program from the Marshall Street Job Development Program Social Committee.
Is there a second? Any questions for Dr. Wilcox?
I just have one thing to say. This group is so great. They put on a quarter auction a couple months ago, and I was able to attend. And wow, I was so impressed with everything they did. And I think they raised over $6,000 that day.
Yes.
So kudos to them because they work really hard to do this and support Marshall Street and job development.
A lot of quarters.
It was. A lot of them mine.
Anyone else? We'll move to the vote. All in favor? Okay, vote 6-0. Thank you very much. Mr. Prue, you're up again.
Thank you, Vice President Stauffer, members of the board, Dr. Savine. The matter I bring before you now is seeking your approval of the Second Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding by and between the Board of Education and the Smithsburg Athletic Booster Club. In 2019, the board entered into the MOU with the Smithsburg Boosters for enhancement to the stadium at Smithsburg High School. In 2021, that scope was increased to include other stadium improvements related to the actual football field itself, turf field, additional lighting, or actually new lighting, relocation of the scoreboard, as well as reviewing and updating the existing track. Staff had considered how we may be able to support the Smithsburg Boosters additionally. We had discussed previously with Dr. Michael and then with Dr. Savine about the possibility of handling the cost of the new lights at the stadium under the ESSER 3 funding we received from the federal government. We previously discussed that with board members. For matter of background, the lights currently at Smithsburg Stadium were secondhand lights that had previously been at School Stadium at South High that the Smithsburg Boosters had paid to have relocated and put up at Smithsburg. Staff felt that it was appropriate that we, out of school system funds, should pay for lights somewhere on the line and not have a second set of lights be on the behalf of the Booster Club. So this MOU provides that amendment to the existing MOU in place, allowing the Board of Ed to handle that expense for the Smithsburg Boosters as we are nearing the point of bringing hopefully an award of a contract too, so we could begin construction within the next several months. So this project is coming to fruition, and this would be a huge support to the Booster Club.
Okay, is there a motion?
I move to approve the Second Amendment to the Memorandum of Understanding by and between the Board of Education of Washington County and the Smithsburg Athletic Booster Club, Inc.
Second.
Second.
Any questions for Mr. Prue?
Just one, Jeff, what are we talking money-wise? How much are we into Smithsburg for right now?
How much is the school system providing? So there is, for this phase one, which will be the turf field, the resurfacing of the track, the lights, relocation of the scoreboard, the Smithsburg High School Athletic Funds is committing $175,000. I think as we had discussed previously, they were holding funds in that account for a building project, so we're utilizing that towards this portion of the building project. This will be the only school system funds from the Board of Education in this particular phase. The board has, if memory serves me correctly, it's $350,000 in the public-private partnership grant funds that is available for the overall project, but they are held for the next phase, which is the phase to redo concession stand, team rooms, ticket booth, restrooms at the stadium. So the board has held that money back for phase two to see those structures go up. And then out of our fund, which is escheated funds that are given to the school board, when heirs are not able to be found, we have available funding of up to $326,000 for a 10-year no-interest loan to the Booster Club should they need it to bring this project to fruition.
I remember it was about 2 years ago we did the first MOU. Were the lights part of that first original planning?
They were not part of the 2019 MOU. The 2019 MOU, the original, was specifically for the buildings, concession stand, team rooms, ticket booth, restrooms, athletic trainer's room. When we revised, did the First Amendment in 2021, the lights were included as part of the project at that time with costs covered by the Booster Club.
Because I remember, I mean, I made it pretty clear, I can't stand the idea of the turf fields. They're just not safe. NFLPA came out and asked for 7 more fields to immediately be changed. But I remember I still voted for it because we were told that pretty much all the money was going to be coming from the Booster Club through donations that they got. So my concern is, I'm happy to know that, because I couldn't remember if the lights were in that first one. My concern is that if we go and approve this with $425,000 right now to replace the lights, does that open it up to now maybe South High wants to have us put in a turf field, and then Boonesboro and Clear Spring? I mean, where does it stop? And that was another concern I had in the first MOU, or the First Amendment, because, you know, like I said, I mean, we just don't have the money for that, and this concerns me when we have to start replacing this field because it's not cheaper. I don't understand why we can't just put better irrigation in so that the field doesn't flood the way it currently does.
Right. So the board has a record at this point of at least not paying for first-run turf fields. The history, you know, North Hagerstown High School at Calais Stadium, that was a public-private partnership as well. That was fully funded by the community. When that field went in, of course, we paid for the first replacement just about, I guess that was a year and a half ago now. With this public-private partnership, the Smithsburg Boosters are fully paying for the first field, and they're providing us $200,000 of seed money for the replacement of that field should it wear out, of course, in the 10 to 12-year margin. So, you know, we've at least provided for seed money to defer some of the costs of the board, at least on the first replacement, you know, give or take, you know, assuming this field goes in 2023, somewhere around 2033 to 2035, it would probably be ready for replacement. So staff has tried to insulate the board a little bit from that expense. So from the perspective of, are we opening ourselves up that others could come forward and want to do turf? Yes. I think that's a natural connection. I think is we, while it is kicking the can down the road, right? I mean, you can always say no. You can always say, no, we're not doing it anymore. We have no interest in doing anymore. But you can always continue to seek full cost for the first one. Look, we're not putting in turf. You want to put the first one in, you got to put the first one in. And then we can discuss whether the board wants more seed money for the second. Or do you say, we'll put the first one in, but if we don't have money to replace it, we're ripping it out. At that point, it's almost as much money to rip it out as it is to do the replacement at that point. So you've got options moving forward. As it relates to this MOU and this amendment, the ship is potentially sailed already on the turf here, except that if the board decides at this point not to support this amendment, the project doesn't move forward unless the Booster Club are willing to pay for the cost of lights, or the existing lights stay until said time as they could be replaced.
Or they say we'll take the $400,000 that would take to build the turf field and use that to put the lights in, and
They could.
and then we could put in better irrigation and make it
I
safer.
think in my discussions with them, I know what answer they would do. The lights would wait.
So Jeff, have they fulfilled their obligation of money that they've, said that they were going to pay?
They
up
have.
to this point?
At this point, pending, of course, approval of this memorandum this evening, this amendment, they have provided us the funding that they need to, and actually the bid is currently on the street. And lights are an alternate, so they could be pulled out if need be.
And we're probably going to have to replace lights at various stadiums. I know the lights at Williamsport are 40 years old, because I was the varsity soccer coach when they first put them up, and we were able to play nighttime games at home, not just away,
Yep.
instead of having to play during the
That school is on my list as well.
Pardon me?
That school is on my list.
Yeah, so.
Clear Spring as well.
And I have, as a former coach, I have reservations about replacing grass fields with artificial turf fields. I will say this, being a soccer coach, if you play on an artificial turf field, the ball rolls a little straighter than it
True.
does sometimes on a field that the night
As you
before
tear
the
your
football
ACL.
team has dug in, and then you got to play a soccer game the next day, but I don't know.
Mr. Pruitt, other than a turf field or a new field, what are some of the other reasons why Smithsburg wants to make these changes? What's different about their stadium than other stadiums?
I would say as a whole, that stadium has not seen a lot of improvement over a number of years. I want to say probably fall of 2018, staff went in and made improvements to the concession stand just prior to the start of the football season. There were some concerns with the subfloor of that concession stand. The grass surface itself, because of that it's partially in a floodplain, does take a lot of wear and tear, because often you play on it when it's wet. All sports, all seasons. Ticket booth, team rooms just don't exist down at that facility like they do at some of our other facilities, and even those that don't have them at the facility, for Smithsburg, it's not in proximity, because of course the high school is up on the hill and the stadium is down below. So there are some challenges there, which is why the board held their money, the $350,000 for phase 2, from a safety perspective, to get the team rooms in place so that there would be a place of shelter should a storm kick up when you had students down at the stadium. So those are some of the other concerns with the stadium as a whole. And while I can't say I'm a grass or a turf guy, and I've not done a ton of research on this, but I can recall a conversation I had in a previous district that was trying to decide between turf and artificial surface. And I will share that previous district chose to put additional irrigation into their field. Theirs was not a flooding issue as Smithsburg's is. Theirs was lack of water. Really just a drying out more than having too much water. But they went through the process of tearing up the surface, drainage, irrigation, laser grading, sod surface, and the concern was for high schools, the wear and tear on those fields, the argument was turf is a better surface because of the wear and tear in the fields, that you cannot maintain a really good grass surface because of that wear and tear, because of the multiple practices, because you're playing soccer and football in the fall, lacrosse in the spring. Lacrosse is harder on the field, I think, than football is. And so the fields don't get an opportunity to rest. And so oftentimes turf can be a better surface because it can be maintained better and have a much truer playing capacity or playing surface for our athletes than maybe having having sod grass is.
Anyone else? All right, let's move to the motion, vote on the motion. All in favor, raise your hand. Okay. Vote is 5-1, and the student member concurs.
Thank you.
Back to Dr. Sovine, Superintendent's report continued.
Vice President Stauffer, members of the board, American Education Week is recognized each year during the week before Thanksgiving break. It's a time that is dedicated to honoring the teams of people in our schools who are working to meet the needs of our students each and every day. We have some guests with us this evening to recognize employees, our employees, for this American Education Week. I would like to call forward at this time Patty Felix, who represents our educational support personnel. Also Neil Becker, who will represent our teachers, and Dr. Rachel Kane Kirkpatrick, who represents our administrators and supervisors.
Thank you, Vice President Stauffer, board members, Dr. Zavine, and staff. As we celebrate American Education Week, I'm honored to represent WCTA members and to share a few thoughts about how teachers in public schools positively impact Washington County. Teachers are essential elements of the team building the foundation for economic prosperity. The magic potion for success? It's not magic. It's teamwork and collaboration, and our teachers collaborate with students, parents, support personnel, and administrators to build Washington County's foundation. Teachers create and execute lessons to ensure students reach their potential. Teachers, along with school counselors and social workers, support students and their families when they experience trauma and loss. Teachers run clubs, coach sports, direct plays, conduct concerts, host art shows, and so much more. Washington County is fortunate to have a team of dedicated professional educators supporting their students. Again, thank you for the opportunity to join in this celebration of American Education Week.
Thank you, Vice President Stauffer, Board of Education members, Dr. Sabine. I'd like to thank you for recognizing the efforts of the educational support personnel during this American Education Week. Washington County Public Schools employs approximately 1,290 ESP staff. These members our learning community play critical roles in meeting the needs of our students. Bus drivers transport students safely to and from our schools, and technicians keep the buses running smoothly and safely. Custodians open our schools for the day, making sure the buildings are safe and clean for students to learn. Our secretaries help schools run smoothly, supporting school administrators, students, school staff, and families. Food service staff prepare and serve healthy and nutritious meals to help students power through their day. Paraprofessionals support teachers in the classroom and enhance learning by working with students directly. Still, there are other staff who contribute to keeping our buildings in working order, seeing that taxpayer dollars are spent responsibly, providing the materials needed for instruction, and much more. We thank all the educational support personnel for their passion for their profession, their commitment to the students, and their contributions to our schools.
Dr. Sofine, Vice President Stauffer, members of the board, I'm honored to be here tonight to recognize the impact of our WCPS administrators and supervisors. The influence and impact of administrators and supervisors on working conditions and student achievement is enormous and often overlooked. Our A&S staff impact all areas of the educational system, ensuring secure and well-maintained facilities, nutritious food programs, relevant and viable curricula, safe and reliable transportation, up-to-date and working technology, sound financial, legal, and hiring practices, implementation of effective instructional practices, and appropriate and timely communication with all stakeholders. In other words, in every corner of the system, wearing many different hats, we cultivate the conditions that allow each WCPS staff member and student to reach their full potential. Thank you, WCPS administrators and supervisors, for your dedicated and courageous leadership in service of our community.
And I want to thank each of you for joining us today, giving of your time to celebrate our employees who serve our students. Once again, thank you.
To recognize to recognize American Education Week, I would like to present certificates on behalf of the Washington County Board of Education and Superintendent of Schools to thank you for all that you do.
Got my picture taken so many times in my life.
Thank you. Thank you.
That'll teach us.
Yeah, right.
There you go, that works. Yep. All right, here on three. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. Last one for good measure. 1, 2, 3.
It's certainly exciting to share student successes with our community, but it's also an honor to share the incredible achievements of our staff. This year, 9 teachers earned the highest honor in language proficiency of 1 or more languages. Ms. Paula Moore, our supervisor of EL and World Languages, is here to introduce the World Languages teachers who have achieved the Global Seal of Biliteracy. Ms. Moore.
Good evening, Vice President Stauffer, members of the board, and Dr. Savine. The Global Seal of Biliteracy was founded in 2018 and has been issued in all 50 states, Asia, South America, Latin America, and Europe. The Global Seal of Biliteracy is an international credential that certifies language proficiency in 2 or more languages. In 2020, WCPS was the first district in the state of Maryland to award the Global Seal of Biliteracy to teachers, and we had 12 teachers who earned that honor at that time. Tonight, we honor 9 additional language teachers and English learner teachers for their advanced proficiency in English, French, Japanese, and Spanish. These teachers scored at the advanced level on the STAMP assessment in reading, writing, speaking, and listening, which qualified them to earn the Global Seal of Biliteracy for working fluency. Their language skills exceed MSDE language teaching certification standards. And tonight's recipients are Oriane Courage Stewart, French, at Boonesboro High School; Alejandro Guzman, Spanish, at North Hagerstown High School; Amber Hongel, Spanish, South Hagerstown High School; Danielle Kieser, Spanish, at Hancock Middle Senior High School; Alicia Rice de Escobar, Spanish, at Williamsport High School; Ayako Shiga, English learner teacher at Ruth Ann Monroe Primary for Japanese; Jay Travado, Spanish, at North High; Liliana Walsh, Spanish, at Boonesboro Elementary School; and Lisa Wartz, Spanish, at the Barbara Ingram School for the Arts.
take a step to your left. A little bit more. No, no, no. Keep going, keep going, keep going. One more step to your left. There we go. I want to make sure I can see everyone. All right, good smiles here on 3. 1, 2, 3. Another one. 1, 2, 3. One more. Little más. 1, 2.
Last week. I am.
May I say something? I just want to say I have a great deal of admiration for people who can speak not only one foreign language, but more than one foreign language. I think it's tremendous. I wish I had that capability to do that.
Certainly, it's customary for Washington County Public Schools to report our student enrollment and the number of students receiving free and reduced meals on an annual basis at this time of the year. Have Mr. Prue, our Chief Operating Officer, and Mr. Chad Criswell, our Senior Project Manager and Planning Supervisor, here prepared to discuss the numbers and what they mean to Washington County Public Schools at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Svine, Vice President Stauffer, members of the board. This is the meeting every year, right? When we come forward and we talk about the big numbers, we talk about, how many students we've gained and or lost. These are based on our September 30 capture numbers, which, as we always remind you, is the number of students that we receive our funding on for the upcoming fiscal year, which would be fiscal year 24. The free and reduced meal eligibility rates are based on the October 31 capture date, which is the USDA capture date. And those numbers are utilized for compensatory education funding. I think I'll let Mr. Criswell go through the lion's share of the numbers. A little throwback to when we talked in June about the blueprint. The good news is we're up. The bad news is we work off a 3-year average, and we lost a bigger year in the 3-year average. So overall, for funding purposes, our numbers are down. But Mr. Criswell will walk you through what that looks like, and I'll close you up at the end with some free and reduced information.
Thank you, Jeff. I remember to go the other way. The thing goes the opposite way, so I apologize. So as Mr. Prue referenced, we are up from last year. We're up by about 113 K-12 students. That's our compensatory funding number. We saw an increase of around 75 students K-5 at the elementary level. We're down 9. We're basically flat at the middle school level, and we're up around 30 at the high school level. And then, of course, Special Center, we're up 17. Pre-K, pretty much flat. Net overall, we're up by about 126 pre-K to 12 students. So with a 22,000 and change system, it's pretty flat, pretty basic growth. When we go back and we look at 3 years ago, you can see that number changes significantly, or much more significantly. We're down about 340 in our elementary grade levels from where we were in 2019, about 400 less in our middle school grade levels. And net overall, pre-K to 12, we're down by about 700 students. The next graph is going to kind of show you from our pre-K to 12 enrollment. You can kind of see we were on a nice slope. We were steady. We were growing every year. It was pretty much almost linear. And then the COVID-19 pandemic hit, and we dropped. And if you look at these last two data points, 2021 and 2022, you can see that we're starting to go back up on that slope again. So we're going to get there. It's just going to take us a little bit of time. When we break this down to our elementary, middle, and high school grade levels, you can see that in the elementary grade levels between 2011 and 2017, we had a small period of growth. That wave of students transferred through to the middle school graph, which is the very bottom, the purple graph line. And you can see that bubble kind of occurred from 2018 to 2020. And we're now seeing the last of that wave kind of go through our high school grade levels in the red line. And we're going to see that for about another year or two, and then we're going to see that kind of come back. But even as that wave went through, we're still seeing a trend of continued growth up system-wide, which is good. So looking at the elementary level, this is just a little closer view of that bubble where I mentioned from around 2011 to 2017, we kind of saw it kind of work its way through. For this year, looking at our enrollment, we saw basically Hickory went up by around 26 students That was pretty much for a large kindergarten that came in and a small exiting fifth grade. Jonathan Hager, we saw go up around 36 student. That was McCleary Hill Phase 2 opened, which we have been keeping the facility committee informed about. Some of the residents of Nolan Village came over. We've been expecting that for a while now. As that school opened, we knew it was eventually going to fill up. So that was really no surprise to us. But looking at the 3-year difference, you can see that those numbers for Jonathan Hager were up 80 from where we were 3 years ago. So again, we expected that school to kind of populate. Looking at the remainder of the schools, we saw Morgansville go down a little bit this year. That was a little bit surprising. That's something I want to specifically watch based on some of the development in that region. That was a little unexpected, especially with the apartments at Seneca Ridge and Collegiate Acres still on the docket. I want to make sure we're keeping an eye on that because I don't want that to come back and surprise us with any type of waves or bubbles. But generally, everywhere else, Sharpsburg, we saw an increase. And while it doesn't look too impressive here, from where we were 3 years ago, it is impressive because of the redistricting that took effect in 2020, where we offered enrollment relief to Boonesboro Elementary and to Pleasant Valley Elementary, which you can also see came down. Moving on to the middle school graph, again, you can see the bubble that just finished kind of occurring in 2020. And looking at this year, we were pretty much flat. The one surprise was Northern Middle, and it really wasn't a surprise. We had projected it. Last year, when we looked at our fifth grade students that resided in that attendance zone, we saw that there was a larger number than normal, and we knew that they were going to be up this year. So they're going to have another 2 years where that class kind of goes through. Looking down the line right now, unless anything changes, we would expect them to return to more normal numbers in the next couple of years. I apologize. And then going and looking from 3 years ago, again, you can see where we're down about 400. That was that's not really a fair assessment because that is where the peak of the wave kind of went through in 2019. So again, I would expect this to be right around that 4,800, 4,900 number as we move forward and kind of see more conventional numbers as it slowly increases a little bit slower. Moving on to the high school, again, a little bit bigger graph. This year we're up 30. The big ones this year were really north and south. We saw some bubbles come through with some of the students living in town. They're up 60 and 70 respectively. Looking at the difference from 2 years ago, or 3 years ago, they're up 127 and 142 from where they were. And we're monitoring is some of the students that live in those areas and how they're going to react. And as the high school numbers come down, that's what we're really going to watch. We're going to see, are they going to come down from more of the rural areas or more of our more outlying areas? Are we going to see people start to migrate out towards, the Boonesboros and the Clear Springs and the Smithsburg? So that's one of the things that as we get in to start geocoding the students, which I plan to do in the next couple weeks, we'll start making some plans and have some better information for you when we get back to projections here in a couple months. Looking at the special center enrollment, we typically are around 75, 78 students this year. We are a little higher due to increased enrollment in the Job Development Center, which was a good thing to see that program increase. We were 17 up this year, 19 up from 3 years ago, so that was a good thing and not anything that we see as bad. And we'll continue to monitor that as we move forward for projections.
I think as we kick over to the free and reduced eligibility numbers, you see a real spike here this year where we went from last year's number at 45.3% of our students up to this year's numbers of 57.8%. And with the food service team, we've looked at this really closely. There's a couple of things going on here. One is, we had been averaging, as you can see, in the 47.5% area prior to the pandemic. Over the 2 years of the pandemic, of course, we were providing free meals for all, as was the federal statute within the food service regulations. So there really was no need for the completion of applications. So that while we didn't see much of a dip in the first year, the fall of 2020, we did see a dip in the fall of 21. So we really, I think, to some extent, lost sight of what was going on in the community because there clearly were families that needed the aid, that were getting it without having to apply for meal benefits. And I think that's what you're seeing reflected here. Second to that is Maryland is one of the demonstration states with USDA for the application of students eligible for Medicaid to be eligible for free meals. And so that direct certification matching has been ongoing this year, and that has bolstered our number and has brought our number higher. Additionally, the overall direct certification matching software that's been implemented throughout the pandemic by the Maryland State Department of Education is working far better than any previous system. So we're getting better matching. So I think that's all together bringing our number higher. I do believe, that some of the initial, as I was getting feedback from the food service team, my initial gut was that this number's, not real in some way. It's artificial, it's propped up. But as they have really dug through the numbers, looked at the direct certification numbers, the application of the Medicaid eligibility, and then the applications that actually came in, we saw a huge response from our families this year. We did great outreach to make sure that our families that needed benefits were filing the applications so they received the benefits, and our community responded, which tells me that the community is still hurting, and is probably hurting greater now than they were pre-pandemic, and that's reflected in that percentage this year, 57.8%, which should have a significant impact as we look at compensatory education funding, thinking about the FY24 budget. And I think with that, we are happy to take questions. In your packet, you also have a school-by-school enrollment by grade, as well as free and reduced meal eligibilities by school as well. So we're happy to answer any questions you have on that data.
I'll start off. I was really shocked the fact that I'm looking at Boonsbar's numbers, and across the board, they're down 100 students. That's shocking. I mean, I don't know what the trend would be on that, but all schools are down.
Well, the elementary is down in part due to the redistricting, where we had
Right.
reallocated some of those students and offered them enrollment relief to Sharpsburg. And Boonesboro is still over state-rated capacity for the elementary school level. However, the middle school saw its lowest enrollment that it's seen in the last 30 years.
Yeah.
The high school also saw the lowest enrollment that it's seen in the last 30 years.
Usually that's a kind of a coming over the mountain type thing, and we see that fluctuation coming over. I thought we'd have saw some more of that. I mean, they still have some homes that are being built down there, and they got that development that's coming on. I'm like, whew.
Yes, they have a couple in the hopper. There's a few that have been being discussed since I've been here
Right.
that we keep waiting on. And, we kind of thought maybe up until recently that we might see it come to fruition here before
Yeah.
long, but now it may not. It's
Yeah.
something we're going to have to keep watching.
But I think with fuel prices high, the coming over the mountain is less. If you've got to drive to work every day, and you're driving to the east, coming over the mountain is not really a viable option for you. So we may potentially could have lost some residents and their families who could not handle that commute with fuel prices. So
Right.
any number of things could be going on there.
Yeah, that was a shock. I don't know about for you, but I wasn't really thinking that one was going to be it, but, okay.
I'm amazed at the farm rate increase, up to almost 58%. That's the highest I've ever seen.
I wasn't sure. I kept speculating. The table of rates, which is basically the federal poverty level that's established by the Federal Department of Human Services each year, is adjusted for inflation. And I thought in conjunction with that, but it never really, it always sort of trails inflation to some extent. And I really felt like the movement of minimum wage in the state of Maryland was going to outpace inflation because, of course, the poverty level is set for the entire 48 contiguous states, and then Hawaii and Alaska have their own rate. So with Maryland really pushing the $15 minimum wage, I expected that wages for individuals in Maryland were going to outpace the poverty level, and that's what the free and reduced meal table of rates is based on. But it did not happen. So it could be any number. I mean, by and large, employment's been stable. We've come down from the mid-pandemic levels. We've been solid. I mean, there are more openings than we have people seeking work. It's a little bit of an anomaly how it jumped that much. I didn't expect that. I thought if it went up, as I told you in June when we gave the blueprint presentation, I was projecting for us to come back to pre-pandemic levels around 48%. That's what I was expecting. This was a shock to me.
We always had trouble getting people to sign up.
Always.
And I think that with the pandemic, we had so many avenues for them to receive food for free that may have given them the ability to say, hey, let's get involved more. So maybe that was a part of that increase. Because, we struggled to get people to sign up, and we knew that they needed it. So it's just they didn't do it. But now I think just that I guess, that overall picture, now they just said, well, we might as well just sign up for it too. So, well,
Do we know what the overall state farm is, like for total student population?
Not at this time, and I could pull you historical data. We typically have been at average or slightly higher than average for farm rate. We are hearing anecdotally from other food service departments that the numbers are up all across the state. So until we, see the numbers published by MSD, I couldn't give you a fair answer of what that looks like.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Prue, Mr. Criswell. As I prepare to make my final comments, I'd like to take a moment to just congratulate our board members who recently were re-elected to their positions, Mr. Evans, Mr. Gesford, Ms. Murray. Congratulations. We look forward to working with you, continuing to work together to support the needs of our students as well as our staff across Washington County Public Schools. I want to add that our re-elected board members will take the oath of office again and will host a swearing-in ceremony on Tuesday, December the 6th at 6 in the evening here in the auditorium. Given that occasion, the board's public business meeting will then be held the following week on Tuesday, December the 13th at 6 p.m. Lastly, this evening, I would like to wish everyone a wonderful Thanksgiving holiday. We have much to be thankful for here in Washington County Public Schools, and I hope everyone in our community can enjoy some meaningful time with their family and loved ones. I just want to remind the public that our schools and offices will be closed next week on Wednesday, November the 23rd through Friday, November the 25th. Mr. Vice Chairman, members of the board, that concludes my report. I remain available to answer any questions or comments of the board.
Okay, we'll move to the personnel action. Dr. Webster.
Good evening, Mr. Stauffer, members of the board, Dr. Savine. As discussed earlier during closed session, there are several staff changes for your review. At this time, I ask for your approval of today's personnel items.
Okay, is there a motion?
Vice President Stauffer, I move to approve the personnel actions dated Tuesday, November 15th, 2022, as presented in the closed session.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, I know. I just haven't said it yet. All in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, vote is 6-0. All right, reports to the board. Committee reports.
Instruction will meet here on Monday, November 21st at 10:30.
Finance, we didn't set another date yet, did we, Jeff? Yeah, we're going to set another date here shortly for Finance Committee.
Nothing for facilities.
Meet December 6th before the swearing in at 4 p.m.
Nothing for human resources.
Nothing for Washington County Association of Student Councils.
Yesterday, I sat through the first meeting of the year. We'll be meeting through April, I think maybe even May, of the Maryland Association of Boards of Education Legislative Committee. The main topic was the legislative priorities of MABE, and I haven't forwarded it yet to my fellow board members, but I'll be forwarding the information so that you can read it. It's a lot of pages. Plus, you got other things to click on other than what shows up. So if you want to know this, click on this. So I'll be sending that to you so you can read all the, I guess, close to 100 pages of stuff. It could be. It's a lot. But the session starts in January, and as I've said many times, I'm glad the General Assembly only meets 90 days a year in Maryland. So Consideration of future agenda items. You've got a list there. Swearing-in ceremony for newly elected board members, December the 6th at 6 o'clock here in the auditorium. Joint meeting with the Board of Education and the county delegation to the Maryland General Assembly at HCC on December the 7th. We do not know the time yet. On December 13th, we'll have from Dr. Willow the 2023-2024 middle school and high school programs of studies. Board reorganization will take place on December 13th. Proposed academic calendars, academic year calendars for 23-24 and 24-25 will be on December the 13th. Science of Reading update, December 13th. School counseling and mental health update, December the 13th. The KRA Kindergarten Readiness Assessment, December 13th. And recognition of student athlete for state championship success, also on that, and the literacy tutoring program on December 13th. And again, if any board member wants anything on the agenda, just see a member of the agenda planning committee, and it will probably be put on. All right, go to board member comments, and we'll start down here with Dr. Zentmeyer.
A huge thank you to Clear Spring High School for the invite to their Veterans Day Assembly. It was awesome and such an example of America's youth at its finest. Very moving, a wonderful way to remember to say thank you very much to our veterans who have served us. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. We have so much to be grateful for here.
I'm going to ditto that. I wasn't able to go to the Clear Spring Assembly this year, but I did last year, and I'm sure it was just as great, if not better, this year. So congratulations to them, and obviously happy Thanksgiving. Hopefully everyone has a great break and is prepared for the holiday shopping rush.
I'd like to thank the voters of Washington County who elected me back to the school board. Julie Green, when she called me, she told me I was a top vote getter, and it was 22,000 people. I'm thinking, I don't really know 22,000 people. It should have been Peter, because Peter knows that many people. So
You know plenty.
I do know quite a few people, but thank you to Washington County for the vote of confidence. And I'd like to say thank you to Happy Thanksgiving to all of my family who finally will all be getting together for probably the first time in many years at my house. So I'll have a house full of folks, and it's nice to be able to have family together. Even though our family's getting smaller, this year we were able to do that. And so I'm going to rejoice in the fact that our families can gather and rejoice in being one again. So I hope you all have a great Thanksgiving.
Yeah, same here. I'm very thankful that we don't have to get our picture taken again, right?
That's right.
I am thankful and grateful to be working with this board, and I wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving.
Echo everyone's sentiments. Dr. Zentmeyer and I went to the program together. That was wonderful. And I do wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. I have two other things. Yesterday, I went to an assembly at Pangbourne Elementary School. It was wonderful. Lead teacher Beth Brandenburg of Pangbourne wrote a letter to Busload of Books Tour. They were chosen, the only school in Maryland, to have the author and illustrator come and present this program. The one book for the pre-K through 1 students was Everywhere Wonder, and then the other book was Ben Yokoyama and the Cookie of Doom. That was for the older students.
The Cookie of Doom?
Cookie of Doom.
Okay.
Yes. And this husband and wife team, author and illustrator, Matthew Swanson and Robbie Baer, have this bus that they've converted into a van, I guess. They live in it with their 4 kids, and they're going to a school in every one of the 50 states to present every student in that school one of their books. And I was so impressed that they autographed this for me. It was a wonderful event, and I'm so grateful. that Beth Brandenburg wrote that letter, and our students were the winners of that assembly. And the other thing I want to say is I cannot tell you how happy I am to serve on this board for another 4 years. Thank you to my family and friends who worked tirelessly on my campaign. We maintained our positive message with endorsements from parents, grandparents, and educators who know and believe in me and what I stand for. I look forward to working collaboratively with my fellow board members and Dr. Savine during my next term. Thank you.
Got a fan out there.
I just want to congratulate Mr. Evans, Mr. Gesford, and Ms. Murray on their re-elections. Yeah, and yeah, happy Thanksgiving. I'm excited to be off. So.
Thank you for the Wednesday, right?
Oh, yes. Thank you for the Wednesday.
I too want to congratulate Mr. Evans, Mr. Gesford, Mrs. Murray on their win. Welcome back to the board. Look forward to working with you, and I sincerely mean that. There was something else about that. Oh, I was going to say I've campaigned before with Mr. Gesford, with Mike. I can remember going in 2014 to Hymes's store down at Weaverton, I guess it is, and I ate one of the largest ham sandwiches I've ever had. It was between two pieces of bread, and I swear it was that thick. I couldn't bite into it. I had to kind of nibble at it and everything, but I had never been there before, but we went there one time, I remember. The other thing is I had RSVP'd to go to the Veterans Day ceremony at Clear Spring High School, and then my grandson from Ashburn, Virginia, called and said, he's in the 5th grade there, and said that Sanders Corner was going to have a Veterans Day ceremony for the first time in a couple years because of COVID, and asked me if I could come. Well, you know, if it's grandson or Clear Spring, the choice is very easy and so forth. But I was very proud to be down there among those veterans. And I hate to say this, but I really felt proud because they ask you to, they give you a microphone, introduce yourself, what branch of service you were in, that type of thing. And then the principal goes through, if you served in Desert Shield, please stand. If you served in Desert Storm, if you served in Enduring Freedom, please stand. If you served in the Korean War, and I'm not doing this in the order in which he did it. There was one gentleman I think stood for Korea. There were no World War II vets there this year, sadly. And then he asked those who served in Vietnam, and 5 of us stood, and it was heart-rendering to hear those people, how loudly they clapped. They clapped for the others, but I felt they clapped a little bit more. And on another note, it was great to see those young elementary students. They sang Stars and Stripes Forever. They sang the Grand Old Flag and so forth. And it was just great to see that ceremony that day. And the one little group had made like service caps, Army caps, I saw them, and they were wearing them. The one class had done it. But it was a very, very nice day. So for me, I don't have anything else. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. My family is spread out amongst the United States, but we'll have a few people there at the house. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Appreciate it. Meeting adjourned.